Rain pounded the broken asphalt as Monica Pierce hurried down the alley, her worn sneakers splashing through filthy puddles. Her shift at the diner had run late again, and the babysitter would tack on an extra fee for every minute past midnight. Monica couldn't afford extra anything but Mrs. Kowalski was the only person in the neighborhood willing to watch her 6-year-old Haley for what Monica could actually pay. The shortcut through the warehouse district cut 15 minutes off the walk home. Every time she took it, her mother's voice echoed in her head. Nothing good happens in dark alleys, Monica. But nothing particularly good had ever happened to her in bright, crowded places either, so she'd stopped being picky about where she walked. She yanked her thin jacket tighter against the October wind and lengthened her stride. That was when she heard it. A sound that didn't fit the rhythm of rain and distant traffic. A whimper. Then another. High, thin, terrified. Children. Monica stopped dead, heart hammering. Instinct screamed at her to keep moving, to think of Haley waiting at home, to not get involved. But the noise could have come straight from her daughter's throat. Haley made those same sounds during thunderstorms, when fear squeezed her little body and all that came out were helpless, breathless cries. Monica turned toward the sound, toward the narrow gap between two abandoned warehouses. She flicked on her phone's flashlight and swept the beam through the darkness. The sight froze her blood. A man slumped against the wet brick, his expensive suit jacket soaked with rain, and something darker that gleamed red in the pale light. Blood. His head lolled to the side, but his arms were locked around two small children, identical twins no more than 3 or 4. Their dark curls were plastered to their foreheads, their little fists twisted in his shirt. They were shaking. "Oh my God," Monica breathed. She rushed forward, dropped to her knees beside them, hands hovering, unsure where to touch first. The man's eyes were closed, his breathing shallow and ragged. The twins stared at her with huge, terrified eyes, as if she might be just another monster from whatever nightmare they were living. "It's okay," Monica whispered, though nothing was remotely okay. "I'm going to help you, okay? I'm going to help." She fumbled for her phone to dial 911. A small hand clamped around her wrist with surprising strength. The boy, she guessed from his blue jacket, looked up at her, throat raw from crying. "No," he croaked. "Bad men. Bad men come." Monica's stomach dropped. This wasn't an accident. Someone had shot this man while he was holding these children, and the people who'd done it might still be nearby. The man's eyelids fluttered. Storm gray irises appeared, unfocused but trying to lock onto something. He tried to speak, managing only a wet, rattling sound. His arms tightened around the twins even as his strength bled out. "I need to get you help," Monica said firmly, forcing her gaze to the wound in his shoulder and not anywhere lower. "Thank God," she muttered when she saw it hadn't hit his chest. "You might actually live through this if we move fast. I'm calling an ambulance." "No hospital." The words were barely audible, each one obviously costing him. "They'll find us." "You'll die," Monica said bluntly. She didn't sugarcoat. Life had beaten that habit out of her long ago. His gaze finally focused on her face. Something flickered there, calculation, desperation, then grim resolve. "Please." His voice was almost lost in the rain. "The twins." The little girl broke into fresh sobs and pressed her face into his chest. The boy's grip on Monica's wrist tightened. "Daddy," he whimpered. "Daddy, wake up. Daddy." Monica swallowed. So these were his kids. This bleeding stranger was their father, and he was begging her, someone he'd never seen before in his life, to protect them from the people who'd put a bullet in him. She had $3 in her bank account, a daughter who needed her, and a life already complicated enough without adding a mystery man and his twins. The smart, sane thing would be to call 911, wait for help, and disappear back into the night. She'd never been particularly smart or sane about children in trouble. "Can you walk?" she asked. He gave the slightest nod. She doubted it, but with her help he managed to stagger upright. The twins latched onto him like barnacles. Monica wrapped her arm around his waist, taking as much of his weight as her small frame and half-healed shoulder could bear. Up close she realized he was well over 6 feet and solid with muscle. His blood was hot through her jacket, terrifyingly warm. "My apartment's 6 blocks from here," she said. already regretting the decision even as she made it. Can you make it? Have to, he ground out. They moved through the rain-slick streets like some strange, desperate procession. Monica half-carried the man as he stumbled and swayed. The twins trotted along, clutching his pant legs reduced to hiccuping sobs. Every passing car sent Monica's heart crawling up her throat. Every shadow looked like it might spit out men with guns. By the time they reached her building, a 4-story walk-up in a neighborhood realtors politely called transitional, he'd blacked out twice. Both times she'd slapped his face harder than she meant to and dragged him forward. The twins had stopped crying altogether, their faces blank with shock. The 3 flights of stairs nearly killed her. Her legs burned and her shoulder, damaged in a car accident 2 years back, screamed under his weight. Somehow she got him to her apartment. They stumbled through the door. On the couch, knitting half-forgotten in her lap, Mrs. Kowalski looked up and crossed herself. Sweet Jesus, Monica, what? I'll pay you double, Monica blurted. Absurd given she could barely pay the original amount. Please don't ask questions. Just take Haley home and don't tell anyone you saw anything. 73-year-old Mrs. Kowalski had survived Soviet Russia before she immigrated. She'd seen things. Her eyes swept over the bleeding man, the soaked, petrified twins and Monica's wild expression. Then she nodded, rose, and quietly gathered a sleepy Haley from the makeshift bed on the floor. Thank you, Monica said, meaning it more than she could express. You're a good girl, Monica, Mrs. Kowalski said softly at the door. Too good. It will get you killed one day, probably. Monica couldn't argue. When they were gone, she lowered the man onto her threadbare couch. Blood immediately seeped into the cushion she bought at a yard sale. The stain was never coming out, but that was the least of her problems. The twins stood in the middle of the tiny living room, dripping rain onto the laminate, looking completely lost. Okay, Monica said, mostly to herself. Okay. First aid kit. I have a first aid kit. She did. A big one she'd assembled when Haley was born, convinced her baby would have some medical crisis she couldn't afford to treat. Most of it had never been used. She'd certainly never pictured herself patching a bullet wound in her living room at 1 a.m. She knelt beside the man and carefully peeled back his blood-soaked shirt. The twins scrambled onto the couch and pressed themselves against him, their small bodies trembling. Something small and dark lay on the carpet. His wallet must have fallen from his pocket. Expensive leather, painfully out of place on her cheap rug. Her hand shook as she picked it up. She told herself she was checking for medical information, emergency contacts, anything that could help keep him alive. The driver's license showed his face, younger and smiling. Very different from the pale, unconscious man bleeding on her couch. But it was the name that stopped her heart. Christopher Thornton Bennett. She knew that name. Everyone in the city knew that name. Bennett Industries. Real estate empire. Billions with a B. His face had been on the cover of Forbes 3 months ago. She'd seen it at the grocery checkout and thought some people were born under very different stars. Christopher Bennett, the 3rd richest man in the state, was bleeding all over Monica Pierce's second-hand couch while his children watched with eyes too old for their tiny faces. And someone had tried to kill him. Her mind skittered through impossible scenarios. Rich or not, a bullet was a bullet. If she didn't act, he'd die right here in her living room. Monica wasn't squeamish. You didn't have that luxury as a single mom working double shifts. But she had never done anything like this. What's your name? She asked the boy softly as she laid out bandages, antiseptic, and tweezers. She tried to keep her voice steady. He stared at her with those huge gray eyes, a mirror of his father's. Austin, he whispered at last. And your sister? Brooklyn. Even quieter. Those are beautiful names, Monica said. I'm Monica. I'm going to help your daddy, okay? But I need you both to be very brave. Brooklyn whimpered and buried her face in her father's arm. Austin just nodded, his little jaw set with grim resolve that twisted something in Monica's chest. These kids had already learned not to cry when they were terrified. Learned to be silent and still when bad things happened. What kind of life taught children that? The bullet had gone clean through Christopher's shoulder. That was the one stroke of luck here. She'd seen enough medical dramas to know it was better than the alternative. She cleaned the wound as best she could, stomach rolling at the sight of torn flesh and exposed muscle. Christopher groaned but didn't wake, which might have been a blessing. The half-empty bottle of expired ibuprofen in her cabinet would be useless against this kind of pain. Your daddy's going to be okay, she lied gently as she worked. He's very strong. The bad men hurt him, Austin said flatly. They came to our house. They had guns. Monica's hands paused. Your house? She asked softly. Where's your house, Austin? The big house with the fountain. He said it like that explained everything. For him, it probably did. Where's your mommy? Monica asked, already bracing for the answer. The twins shared a silent look, some wordless twin language passing between them. Mommy went to heaven, Brooklyn murmured. A long time ago. A widower raising twins alone. Monica felt an unexpected stab of sympathy. She knew how hard it was to raise a child by herself, though she imagined his resources were a little better than her overdrawn account and drawer full of past due notices. She worked in silence for nearly an hour, cleaning and bandaging. She checked his pulse every few minutes, making sure he was still breathing. Eventually the twins sagged against him, finally worn out, and fell asleep. Monica pulled out the only decent blanket she owned, a crocheted heirloom from her grandmother, and draped it over all three of them. When Christopher's eyes opened again, it was close to 3 in the morning. He stared at the water-stained ceiling in confusion before his gaze found Monica, slumped in a chair across from him. You didn't call the police, he rasped. Your son said not to. Said bad men would come. Monica crossed her arms. Want to tell me what's actually going on? Because I just dug a bullet out of a billionaire's shoulder in my living room. I'd like to know if I should start looking for apartments in another state. Something flickered behind his eyes. Surprise that she knew who he was, then resignation. You looked in my wallet, he said. You were unconscious and bleeding, she shot back. I was looking for emergency contacts. I found your identity instead. He tried to sit up and sucked in a sharp breath, hand flying to his bandaged shoulder. The twins stirred but stayed asleep. How long was I out? He asked. About 2 hours. You've lost a lot of blood. You should be in a hospital. Can't. His jaw clenched. They have people everywhere. Police, hospitals, courts. If I show up anywhere official, I'm dead. The twins are dead. Cold slid down Monica's spine. Who has people everywhere? He studied her for a long moment, clearly weighing how much to trust this stranger who'd saved his life. My business partner, he said at last. Former business partner. Marcus Hale. The name meant nothing to Monica. She didn't exactly run in billionaire circles. And why does your former business partner want you dead? She asked. Because I found out he's been using Bennett Industries to launder money for some very dangerous people. When I told him I was going to the authorities, Christopher's voice frayed. He sent men to my house. My private estate. The twins and I barely escaped. I thought we'd lost them in the city, but they found us again near the warehouses. So you're not just rich, Monica said slowly. You're rich with a target on your back. And now a waitress and her kid are tangled up in this. Guilt rippled over his features. I'm sorry. I had nowhere else to go. When you found us, I was trying to reach the Canadian border, but, he glanced at his shoulder. That plan didn't survive contact with reality. You'll survive, Monica said, surprising herself with her certainty. But we need a plan. Those men saw your face, know you're hurt, and they'll watch every place you might go for help. Hospitals, clinics, police stations. Which is why I can't go anywhere. He agreed quietly, eyes sharp despite his exhaustion. I know this is insane. I know I have no right to ask. But can we stay here? Just for a few days. Until I can think. Heal enough to protect Austin and Brooklyn. Monica let out a brittle, disbelieving laugh. You want to hide out in my apartment, Mr. Bennett? I have a 6-year-old who asks questions about everything. Nosy neighbors. A landlord dying for an excuse to evict me so he can hike the rent. This is the worst safe house in the city. It's also the last place anyone would look, Christopher countered. Marcus knows my habits, my properties, my friends. He would never imagine I'm holed up in. His gaze slid over the cramped living room, the sagging furniture, the water stain on the ceiling. In a dump. Monica finished, voice cool. You can say it. I'm aware I live in a dump. I was going to say in a world so far removed from mine I never would have crossed its path, he said quietly. I didn't mean to insult you. You saved my life and my children's lives. You just need time, she cut in. To think, to plan, to heal. He nodded once. Every instinct told her to call the cops, hand this nightmare over to someone with a badge, and go back to her small precarious life. But her gaze drifted to the twins, sleeping peacefully for the first time in hours, their faces soft and unguarded. She thought of Haley. If someone was hunting my daughter, she said slowly, and I was bleeding in an alley with nowhere to go, I'd pray someone helped. She exhaled. 3 days. You get 3 days. That's when my rent is due. If my landlord sees you, we'll be on the street anyway. Relief broke over Christopher's face. Thank you. I'll pay you, of course. Whatever you need. I don't want your money, she snapped, sharper than intended. I'm not doing this for a reward. I'm doing it because those kids need their father alive. And right now you're in no shape to keep them safe. Then what do you want? He asked, studying her with unsettling intensity. Monica thought about the overdue electric bill, the dead car, Haley's school fees, the dental work she'd postponed for 2 years. All the things money could fix. I want you gone in 3 days, she said. I want you to keep your head down and not drag trouble to my door. And I want your word that if anything happens, if those men find you here, you'll make sure my daughter is safe. You have my word, Christopher said solemnly. On my life, your daughter will not be harmed because of me. They regarded each other in the dim light. A billionaire on the run and a tired waitress who'd stumbled into his nightmare. Outside, the rain eased. A faint hint of gray edged the windows. Monica pushed herself to her feet, back aching from the long night. I need 2 hours sleep before my kid wakes up. There's leftover pasta in the fridge if the twins get hungry. Don't answer the door. Don't make any phone calls. And if you bleed on anything else, you're cleaning it. A ghost of a smile touched his mouth. Yes, ma'am. She paused at her bedroom door. Mr. Bennett, those men who shot you. How dangerous are they really? His smile vanished. They killed my head of security without hesitation. I'd known him 15 years. He had a wife and 3 kids. They shot me while I was holding mine. His gray eyes hardened to steel. If they find us here, none of us will survive the night. Monica nodded slowly and closed her door. She lay awake staring at the cracked ceiling, wondering what she just stepped into. In the living room, a billionaire and his twins slept on her couch. Men with guns were looking for them. And somehow Monica Pierce, who could barely afford groceries, had become the only shield between Christopher Bennett and whoever wanted him dead. 3 days, she told herself. Just 3 days. What could possibly go wrong? Morning came too fast, heralded by Haley's cheerful voice echoing down the hallway. Mommy, Mrs. Kowalski said you had an adventure last night. Monica shot upright, heart racing. She'd slept maybe 90 minutes and felt like she'd been run over. She stumbled out of her room and intercepted Haley before she barreled into the living room. Hey baby. Monica forced brightness into her voice. Listen, we've got some guests staying for a few days. Haley's eyes flew wide. Guests? We never have guests. I know. These are special guests who need our help. There's a man who got hurt, and his 2 little kids. They're about your age. She dropped to Haley's level. I need you to be very grown up about this. Very quiet. Very careful. What happened to the man? Haley asked, curiosity already in full swing. Monica had rehearsed this during her brief, restless sleep. He was in a car accident. He's recovering, so we have to let him rest. Can you do that for Mommy? Haley nodded earnestly. Monica led her into the living room. Christopher sat propped carefully on the couch, his good arm wrapped around the twins. In daylight he looked even worse, pale, hollow-eyed. But he managed a faint smile when he saw Haley. You must be Haley, he said warmly. Your mom told me about you. I'm Christopher, and these are my kids, Austin and Brooklyn. The twins peered at her shyly. Haley studied them with open fascination. You look exactly the same, she announced to Austin and Brooklyn. That's so cool. Brooklyn giggled, the first true laugh Monica had heard from either child. Within minutes, the three of them were on the floor, playing with Haley's small collection of toys, voices low but animated. Monica caught Christopher watching them with something like relief. "They haven't played like that in weeks," he said quietly. "Not since the threat started." Monica poured him a glass of water and dug out some crackers, the closest thing to convalescent food in her cupboards. "You need to eat something. Keep your strength up," she told him. "Yes, nurse," he said dryly, then winced as he shifted. The bandage had seeped through. While the kids were distracted, Monica rewrapped it. The wound looked better than she'd feared. No infection yet. She'd swiped a course of antibiotics from the diner's first aid cabinet on her way out last night, the kind they kept for kitchen burns. Not ideal, but better than nothing. "You should have been a doctor," Christopher observed as she worked. "Yeah, well, med school costs money," she replied. "Some of us have to work instead of dream." "I worked for my success," Christopher said, an edge creeping into his tone. "I wasn't born into money. My father poured concrete for a living. I put myself through college working 3 jobs." Monica paused, thrown. The media always painted Bennett as some golden boy heir. "I didn't know that," she admitted. "Most people don't," he said. "It's not the story they like to tell." He watched his kids on the floor. "I built Bennett Industries from nothing. 20 years of 16-hour days, missed holidays, sacrificed relationships. And now Marcus Hale wants to destroy it all because I won't let him turn my company into a criminal front." "Tell me about Hale," Monica said, settling into the chair with a mug of instant coffee, the only kind she could afford. "If I'm risking my life, I get to know who I'm hiding you from." Christopher fell silent for a minute, putting the story in order. "Marcus came on as a partner 5 years ago," he said. "He had connections, capital, vision. We expanded overseas, broke into new markets. The company tripled in value. I thought he was the best thing that ever happened to Bennett Industries." "When did you notice something was off?" Monica asked. "About 6 months ago. Little things at first. Unusual wire transfers. Meetings I wasn't invited to. Projects that didn't quite add up. I started digging quietly." His jaw nodded. "Turned out Marcus was using our international developments to launder money for a crime syndicate. Hundreds of millions cycling through shell companies, fake contractors, phantom properties. All buried inside legitimate deals." Monica's coffee sat like acid in her throat. "And when you confronted him?" "He smiled," Christopher said bitterly. "Offered me a cut. Said I'd been useful, making everything look respectable. That I could either officially join him or—" He trailed off, eyes going distant. "He showed me photos. Austin and Brooklyn at school. My housekeeper buying groceries. My head of security's kids at soccer practice." He didn't need to say anything more. "But you didn't fold," Monica said. "I couldn't." Christopher's voice went soft. "My wife Caroline died 2 years ago. Cancer. Before she passed, she made me promise I'd always do the right thing. That I'd be the kind of man our children could be proud of." He looked at Monica. "How could I look at them and admit I chose money over morality?" Monica found herself reluctantly respecting him. "So you went to the authorities," she said. "I gathered everything," he said. "Spreadsheets, emails, recordings. It's all on a secure drive. I had a meeting scheduled with federal investigators yesterday." He let out a harsh laugh. "Marcus found out. He moved first. The attack at your house," Monica said. "He was trying to stop you before you could talk. And send a message," Christopher added. "If he can kill Christopher Bennett in his own home, who's safe?" "Where's the evidence now?" she asked. "In my office at Bennett Industries headquarters," he said. "Hidden in a false compartment in my desk. Only I know where." "And you think you'll just stroll in and grab it when you're feeling better?" she asked. "Marcus will have your office covered." "I was hoping to wait until things cooled down," he admitted. "Until I could move safely. Or," Monica said slowly, "we could get it now." His head snapped up. "Absolutely not. It's too dangerous." "You just said it yourself," she replied. "Marcus knows your patterns. He'll be watching for you. But he doesn't know me." "Monica, I'm nobody," she cut in. "A waitress. Invisible. That's the one perk of being poor. People like Marcus and you don't see us. He weighed that, running silent calculations. Even if you got into the building, he said, you'd need access to my private office. Security codes, biometrics. Can you get me temporary credentials? She asked. Vendor pass, cleaning crew authorization, something like that? He considered. I have a friend. Daniel Richardson, Christopher said at last. He runs operations for the building. We went to college together. He has nothing to do with the business side. Marcus wouldn't have reason to lean on him. If I could get a message to him. No phones, Monica said immediately. You're the one who said Marcus has people everywhere. Anything you send could be traced. Daniel plays chess at Morrison Park every Saturday, Christopher said slowly. Always has. Same table by the fountain. It's his decompression time. He glanced toward the window where weak sunlight filtered through clouds. Today is Saturday, he added. Monica followed his gaze. So I go to the park, she said, find Daniel and deliver a message. It's still too risky, he argued. Marcus is paranoid. Everything about this is risky, she said. Sitting here waiting to be found is suicide. At least this way we act first. He studied her face, then exhaled. If you're going to do this, he said, you need to understand what you're stepping into. Marcus is not just dangerous. He's ruthless. If he even suspects. He won't, she interrupted. He's looking for desperate billionaires, not broke waitresses at the park with their kids. Fine, Christopher said at last. If you're determined, I need you to say some very specific things so Daniel knows the message is really from me. For the next hour he described Daniel in detail, appearance, habits, and drilled Monica on the exact phrase that would prove the message's authenticity. She didn't write anything down. Too risky. Finally he slid a simple gold ring off his finger. The inside held a worn inscription. Show him this, Christopher said. It was my father's. Daniel will recognize it. Monica felt the weight of it in her palm. I'll be back in 2 hours, she said. Monica. He caught her hand, gripping it briefly. Thank you. I know I have no right to ask. And I know you said you don't want money. But if we survive this, I will find a way to repay you properly. Just stay alive, she said. And keep those kids alive. That's enough. She left him on the couch with 3 children crouched around a coloring book, the scene so ordinary it felt like a lie. Morrison Park was a 20-minute bus ride away, tucked among the financial district's glass towers where people in $1,000 suits drank $7 coffee. In her thrift store jeans and faded jacket, Monica felt like she wandered onto the wrong movie set. She kept her head down and Haley's hand tight. Daniel Richardson sat exactly where Christopher had said he'd be, at the stone chess tables near the fountain, playing against himself. 40s black, graying at the temples, kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. He looked more like a favorite professor than the operations manager of a skyscraper full of secrets. Monica sat across from him and moved a piece randomly. Daniel looked up, puzzled, clearly about to excuse himself from an unwanted game. Monica opened her hand under the table and revealed the ring. His gaze dropped, then shot back to her face, stunned. She leaned forward and whispered the phrase Christopher had drilled into her. The king is in check, but the game isn't over. Daniel's hand shook as he took the ring. Where is he? He breathed. Everyone thinks. Marcus announced he's taking emergency leave for a family matter. Monica cut in quietly. Rumors about a breakdown, drugs, you name it. People are starting to believe it. But, Daniel pressed. But he's alive, she said. Barely. He needs your help. Around them, the park carried on like any Saturday. Joggers circled, children shrieked near the playground, dogs chased thrown balls. No one spared a second look for a tired woman and a middle-aged man murmuring over a chessboard. Being invisible, Monica realized, might be the only thing saving them. Daniel turned out to be exactly the ally Christopher had hoped. Within an hour of that meeting, Monica had a cleaning crew uniform, a fake ID badge, and detailed instructions on how to reach Christopher's office. Marcus has been strange all week, Daniel told her, voice low. On edge. Snapping at people. He's had private security sweep the building twice a day. Now I know why. The plan was brutally simple, which usually meant it would fail in complicated ways. At 6 Monday morning, Monica would enter Bennett Industries as part of the early cleaning crew. Daniel had arranged for the regular cleaner to conveniently call in sick. She'd have a 30-minute window to reach Christopher's office on the executive floor, retrieve the evidence, and leave before anyone important showed up. She spent Sunday memorizing the floor plans Daniel sketched and practicing the door codes until she could recite them half asleep. From the couch, Christopher coached her, his color slowly returning as the antibiotics kicked in and his body began to knit itself back together. The twins and Haley became inseparable, turning kitchen utensils and couch cushions into elaborate games. "You don't have to do this," Christopher said for the 10th time as Sunday evening edged in. "I can wait another week. Go myself." "You can't walk across the room without getting dizzy," Monica pointed out. "And Marcus will be waiting for you. Right now, I'm your best option." "My only option," he corrected wearily. "I hate that I've put you in this position." Over the past 2 days, Monica had learned things about him that no Forbes profile had ever mentioned. He did different voices when he read bedtime stories. He could name every person who'd ever worked for him long-term. He cried when he talked about Caroline without shame. He was nothing like the cold corporate shark she'd imagined. "Why didn't you take Marcus's offer?" she asked suddenly. "You could have gotten richer, lived comfortably. No one would have known." He watched his children sprawled asleep on the floor. "When Caroline was dying," he said quietly, "she asked me what kind of world our kids would grow up in. I promised her I'd do whatever I could to make it better. I can't teach Austin and Brooklyn that integrity matters if I abandon it the second it's hard. Especially when it's hard." Monica thought about Haley, about the lessons she was teaching without ever saying a word. By helping Christopher, was she teaching courage and compassion, or recklessness? She still didn't know. She only knew she couldn't stop now. Monday dawned cold and gray. Monica kissed a sleepy Haley goodbye, made Christopher swear to keep all 3 kids quiet and inside, and stepped into the pre-dawn dark. The cleaning uniform felt strange, but the fake badge looked authentic enough. Bennett Industries headquarters rose like a blade of glass, 40 stories of wealth and power cutting into the sky. Monica slipped in through the service entrance, flashing her badge at the security guard. He barely glanced at it. Invisible. The cleaning supervisor assigned her to the executive floor. Monica's heart hammered as the elevator doors slid shut, and the numbers climbed. 37th floor. Christopher's office was at the far end of the corridor, overlooking the city he'd helped build. The space was exactly what she expected. Towering windows with $1 million view. A massive desk, leather chairs. But there were personal touches too. A crayon drawing tacked to a filing cabinet, a framed photo of Caroline laughing, a chipped mug proclaiming world's okayest dad. She worked quickly, hands trembling as she keyed in the security code to his private safe, then the secondary code for the hidden compartment in his desk drawer. A small flash drive rested exactly where he'd said it would be. It looked innocuous, like any cheap thumb drive. It apparently held enough evidence to topple a criminal empire. She slipped it into her pocket. Footsteps and voices sounded in the hall. "Check every office personally," a man ordered. "I don't care what the logs say." Monica went cold. She knew that voice from televised interviews. Smooth, confident, always faintly amused. Marcus Hale. She dove behind the desk, curling herself into the narrow space. The door was already opening. "Mr. Hale, this really isn't necessary," another man protested. "The cleaning crew is thoroughly vetted." "Bennett is alive," Marcus snapped. "I know he is. That body they found in the warehouse district wasn't his. Which means he's out there injured, desperate. He'll try to get to this evidence eventually." Monica's breath hitched. So they'd found a body. Someone else had died to cover Marcus's tracks. "Sir, even if he wanted to, Bennett can't access the building," the second man argued. "Every camera, every scanner." "He's smart enough to send someone else," Marcus cut in. His footsteps crossed the carpet. Through the narrow gap under the desk, Monica saw gleaming Italian leather shoes stop a few feet away. Someone we wouldn't notice. Someone invisible. The shoes moved closer. If he looked down, if he pulled open the desk drawer and saw the disturbed compartment. Mr. Hale. A woman's voice from the hallway. Sir, you have an urgent call. Singapore investors. Marcus muttered a curse. This conversation isn't over, he told his companion. I want a full audit of everyone who's been in this building for the last 72 hours. Names, backgrounds, everything. His footsteps retreated. The door closed. Monica stayed frozen for 5 full minutes, counting slow breaths before daring to move. Her knees creaked as she unfolded herself. She smoothed the desk, checked that everything looked untouched, and stepped out into the hall with her cart. Getting out was worse than getting in. Her hands shook on the handle. Every guard's glance felt like a spotlight. Every security camera felt aimed straight at her. She kept her pace steady, her gaze down, and walked out the service entrance like she belonged there. 3 blocks away she finally ran. Christopher was on his feet when she burst into the apartment, against every medical directive. Did you get it? He demanded. Monica yanked the drive from her pocket and held it up. Relief crashed over his features so strongly he nearly swayed. You're incredible, he said hoarsely. Absolutely incredible. Marcus was there, she said, adrenaline still burning through her. He knows you're alive. He's convinced you'll try to reach this evidence. He's watching everyone who might help you. Christopher's jaw tightened. Then we move fast. Daniel is setting up a meeting with federal investigators for tomorrow morning. Neutral ground. Maximum security. And once you hand over the evidence, we're all safe, Monica said. She wanted to believe it. That night sleep wouldn't come. Monica lay in bed listening to the small noises of her apartment, the twins' soft breathing, Haley's tiny snores, an occasional rustle from the living room where Christopher was keeping watch. Marcus Hale was hunting them. And here they all were, packed into her tiny place like fish in a barrel. But they'd made it this far. One more day, she told herself. Just one more. Tuesday morning, Daniel pulled up in an unmarked car. The drive to the federal building was silent, tension thick enough to taste. Christopher held the flash drive like it was fragile glass. Monica had insisted on coming. She wasn't about to let him face this alone. Mrs. Kowalski had all 3 children in her apartment, armed with Monica's pepper spray and explicit instructions to dial 911 at the first sign of anything odd. The federal agents were exactly what Monica expected. Hard-eyed, tired, methodical. They were polite but skeptical as Christopher laid out his story and passed over the evidence. Then they opened the files. Expressions shifted. Phones came out. More agents appeared. Within 3 hours, warrants were being drafted for Marcus Hale and a long list of associates. You're a brave man, Mr. Bennett, the lead investigator said at last. This evidence is airtight. Hale's empire is finished. Christopher sagged back in his chair, years of strain settling onto his shoulders. My children, he said roughly. I need protection for my children. Already in motion, the agent assured him. We'll have agents on them around the clock until Hale and his people are in custody. Relief should have crashed through Monica. Instead, a hollow ache opened up. It was over. Christopher would go back to his mansion, his company, his billion-dollar life. She would go back to the diner, the overdue notices, the constant struggle not to drown. Their worlds had collided for one impossible week. Now they would split apart again as they were always meant to. Monica, Christopher said quietly, touching her arm. Can we talk? Privately. They stepped into an empty conference room. Below the window, the city stretched out, oblivious to the criminal empire that had just been gutted. I owe you everything, Christopher said. My life. My children's lives. Justice for Caroline. There's no way to repay that. I told you, she said. I don't want your money. I know, he said. This isn't about payment. He pulled out his phone, recently returned by the agents. It's about gratitude. He turned the screen toward her. At first, the document didn't register. Then the numbers did. Her knees went weak. This is a college scholarship fund, Christopher said. For Haley. Full tuition, room and board at any school she gets into. And this, he swiped to another document, is a trust that will give you a living wage while you go back to school yourself. If you want to. No strings. Just a chance to dream again. Tears blurred Monica's vision. "Christopher, I can't." "You can," he said gently. "You saved my children. Let me help yours." He hesitated. "And there's something else. Bennett Industries needs a new VP of operations. Daniel's retiring next year. I need someone with integrity, courage, and the ability to notice what others overlook. I can't think of anyone more qualified than you." Monica let out a watery laugh. "I'm a waitress. I barely finished high school. So I'll pay for you to get your degree," he said simply. "Business management if you want. Night classes while you work as my executive assistant. You'll learn the company from the ground up, the same way I did." He smiled faintly. "I built Bennett Industries on the idea that talent matters more than pedigree. Help me prove that's still true." "Why?" Monica whispered. "Why do all this?" He searched her face for a long moment. "Because you saw a man bleeding in an alley holding his children," he said, "and you didn't walk away. You risked your safety, your daughter's safety, your home, for strangers. That's not something money can buy. That's character. And that's exactly what I need if I'm going to rebuild my company into something Caroline would be proud of." Monica thought of her life. The constant scrape to get by. The fear that one broken appliance or medical bill would knock everything down. She pictured Haley with the opportunities she'd never had. Pictured herself learning something new. Becoming someone her daughter could point to with pride. "I'm terrified," she admitted. "Good," Christopher said, smiling a little. "That means you understand what it is you're accepting. But I've watched you stare down armed criminals and infiltrate a high-security office tower. I think you can handle a business degree." 6 months later, Monica stood in the lobby of Bennett Industries. But this time she wasn't in a cleaning uniform. Her new suit was modest but professional. The nameplate on the executive assistant's desk read Monica Pierce, and it still looked like it belonged to someone else. Christopher's shoulder had healed completely. Marcus Hale and 14 associates were awaiting trial. The scandal had rocked the business world, but Bennett Industries had survived, emerging leaner, cleaner, and under far more scrutiny by its own choice. "Ready for your first day?" Christopher asked, appearing at her elbow with 2 cups of real coffee. "Absolutely terrified," Monica confessed. "Excellent," he said. "Still the right answer." He handed her a cup. "Austin and Brooklyn want to know if Haley can come to their birthday party this weekend. There's a promised treasure hunt they're very serious about." "She's already picking out her outfit," Monica said, smiling at the memory of Haley's excitement. The 3 kids had become a tight little pack, and watching Haley play with children who didn't care about her worn clothes or small apartment had healed something raw in Monica. "And you?" Christopher asked. There was something new in his tone. Over the months she'd worked at his side, taking night classes, learning the ropes, something had shifted between them. Late-night strategy sessions. Shared laughter over the twins' antics. Quiet moments when their hands brushed and neither pulled away. "I'm planning to take things one day at a time," Monica said softly. "See where this goes." "Sounds like a good plan," Christopher agreed. He hesitated, then added, "Though full disclosure, I've gotten attached to having you around. You might find yourself stuck with us." "Stuck with a billionaire and his adorable twins?" Monica said. "I think I can live with that. But fair warning, I still expect voices when you do bedtime stories." Christopher laughed, the sound warm and unguarded. "Deal. But only if you promise to keep calling me out when I'm being an oblivious rich guy." "That's basically my job description now," she said dryly. They walked toward the elevator together. In the polished glass, Monica saw their reflection. A former waitress in a simple suit, and a billionaire who'd learned that the most valuable things in life couldn't be bought. Beyond the lobby windows, the city stretched out, full of possibility. She'd found him shot and clutching his twins in a dark alley, not knowing he owned half the skyline. What she had seen even then was something more important. A father desperate to protect his children. A man willing to lose everything rather than do the wrong thing. In saving him, she'd somehow saved herself. The elevator doors slid open. Side by side they stepped inside. Monica had learned that the best stories weren't about where you started or how much money you had. They were about who you chose to be when everything was on the line, and who stood beside you when the world went dark. She had chosen to be someone who didn't walk away. Someone who helped. Someone who believed courage mattered more than circumstance. As the elevator rose toward their new beginning, she decided once again that it was the best choice she'd ever made.